Hello, and welcome to Expected Value, the podcast that goes inside the sports analytics world. I'm Paul Carr from True Media. This is episode 67 of the show. Not a lot of great players have worn number 67, so I'm calling this the Bob Kuechenberg episode for the great former Dolphins offensive lineman who should be in the Hall of Fame, in my somewhat biased opinion. Kuechenberg has excelled at a couple different O-line spots, sort of like today's guest has excelled at several different levels of baseball. The college baseball season ended a couple weeks ago as LSU beat Florida 2-1 in the best-of-3 championship series. The whole tournament in Omaha was one of the great ones. An all-time game when LSU beat Wake Forest in extra innings to reach the championship series, among other things. And we like to talk with someone from the winning team, especially if they happen to be one of our clients, like this year. So last year we had Chris Cleary from Ole Miss on the show. You can find that one in our archives. This year it's former LSU pitching coach Wes Johnson. I say former because he took the Georgia head coach job before this past season ended, then finished the tournament with LSU before shifting over to the Bulldogs full-time. He's had a pretty interesting career path. Started in high school baseball, climbed the collegiate ladder to the SEC with a couple different schools, then went straight to the majors as the Twins pitching coach, a jump few, if any, people have ever made directly, before joining LSU and now Georgia. So in our conversation, Wes and I will talk about his whirlwind last month, winning a national title and changing jobs, his career journey, different data he's had available, from the mid-majors in college to the SEC to MLB. What's different about game prep at the MLB level compared to the SEC? Tailoring data and information for different pitchers and hitters. How data factors into the recruiting process now, whether it's through the portal or incoming high school players. Communicating data with players, being communicated with by analysts, and his favorite moment from winning the national championship. Then producer Sergio De La Espriella, a Florida alum, sadly will join me to react and wrap things up. Without further ado, here's the Expected Value conversation with Georgia head coach, former LSU pitching coach, Wes Johnson. We're joined now on Expected Value by Wes Johnson, national champion pitching coach with LSU. He's now the Georgia head coach. Wes, thanks for joining us on the show. It's been a month since you were named Georgia head coach. Obviously a whirlwind last month for you. Let's just start there. What's it been like? New job, national title, crazy month for you.
Well, let me start off by saying thanks for having me. Obviously, huge fan of True Media and have used it now for a while, and can't say enough good things about it. Man, the last month, guys, it's been unreal. I I guess what I did is I compared it to a time back in 2019 when I was with the Twins, and I think we played 18 or 19 games in 17 or 18 days, and there was a West Coast swing. We were back home. We had to go back to the West Coast, and you just wake up you don't even know what hotel room you're in, and that's been real similar, I think. And you don't sleep a lot, but that's why we got caffeine, right?
That's right.
So,
Keeps us
but
going.
it was my days were pretty power packed. I was getting up around 5:30, and I was game prepping for LSU for the opponents we had, and then starting about the mid morning, I would jump on the phone with some you know with current players at Georgia, and then obviously starting to recruit out of the portal, and man, it to win that national title and be able to do all that. That's something I'll never forget.
So let's start here by laying a little bit of groundwork, just telling people about your career, had some unconventional turns. Let me start just back at the beginning career-wise. How did you get into coaching in the first place, starting at the high school level?
Oh man, yeah, just wanted played. Obviously, wanted to when I got done. I really wanted to continue in the game, and it was kind of funny. Didn't know exactly what I was going to do when I got done playing and got my degree, and had some people start asking me to coach some summer teams. Summer ball AAU at that time was getting really big. And so jumped in, started doing some AAU, had a semester of school left, finished it up and said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get into it, and started there, started at the high school level. Um, coached there for 10 years at the high school level in different roles and different capacities, and was able to win a state title one of my years there as a head coach, and had a runner-up year. I mean, just was very fortunate to have some really good players back then. And I tell you what, coaching high school baseball, it'll make you a better coach. When I think we get to this level and we forget back in those days, you were teaching some guys how to catch a fly ball in the air. So, um, but yeah, then from there, had some people reach out to me about some opportunities at some small colleges, and decided to do that. Went to work at Central Arkansas. Um, I worked in various roles there. Um, from there, just continued journey through Southern Arkansas. Uh, Things really sped up and started to pick up speed when I got to Dallas Baptist. Was able to really get in there with Dan Hefner, who's obviously a phenomenal, head coach, and had a ton of success there. And uh, anyway, so went through and was with Dallas Baptist, was able to go, then left there and was able to get into the SEC. My time in the SEC has been a lot of fun. We 2016, I was at Mississippi State. We won the league outright, and we're a national seed, and actually lost to Arizona. They walked us off. Jay Johnson was the head coach of that team,
Okay.
and they walked us off in 2016 to go to Omaha. Um, and then 2017, 2018 at Arkansas, then was approached by some Major League Baseball teams to be a pitching coach. Ultimately decided to go with the Minnesota Twins. Was there. We won back-to-back Central Division titles in 19 and 20. And then left there to come to LSU, and didn't have any, just had my head down going to work, and we were having a good season, and Georgia called, and that's kind of how it happened. And so now I'm there.
Let me start some of those small colleges that you started with, Central and Southern Arkansas, Dallas Baptist, really not small in the college baseball world. This wasn't that long ago. This is 10, 15 years ago. From a data information, prep standpoint, what sort of info was available to you at that kind of mid-major-ish level at that point?
Man, it was tough back in the Central Arkansas days because, that's back when you would call somebody and they would fax you, or, if you could get them to email it back then, it was it.
That's a
You
win.
would get, yeah, it was a lot of being on the phone and writing down, hey man, this guy does this. Man, can you fax me this, your notes on this guy? And the challenge back then was being at a smaller school is you may call, you may have had Ole Miss during the midweek, and you're calling Arkansas for their report, and Arkansas's guys are throwing 92 to 93, and my guys are throwing 88. So thinking that we can pitch them the same, it was very, very. I look back though too, and I think at those times that's what led me to data was. I was going, okay, I need to know how to get guys out throwing 88, not throwing 93. We're not comparing apples to apples here. But we didn't have a choice, and you didn't have video like you have now. And then when I got to Dallas Baptist, I was able to we were able to, I was able to start tracking more things. I had looked into Pitch FX. I had started talking to some people. I was doing a lot of biomechanical work at the time, so I was getting like data from a different perspective on players, just from a development standpoint, but was needing it for the games. And then we finally we got Tableau, and which is product, and we got TrackMan, and I just started doing it myself. Um, yeah, we didn't know, there was no other way. So yeah, that's when it really started to ramp up, because I started to see where some guys could a pitch to have success, and to be what we needed to do to continue to develop players.
So then you make that jump to the SEC. You've been at several different schools there. Right now, obviously a very different time. What, from a data information standpoint, what does a typical SEC school have? Whether it's tracking video, what are the key
Yeah. I
tools
mean,
that most teams are
I
using?
can't speak for every school.
Hmm.
The
Yeah, just
majority
in
of schools
general.
have, yeah, the majority of schools have TrackMan. The majority of schools have some version of a video device, whether it be bats or something along those lines. And then a lot of schools are moving to True Media, just because we have to. They're seeing the value of it. It's funny now. It kind of trickles down where they get a few people into a big league front office or whatever it is, and then it's like, hey, what are you guys doing game planning and so forth and development. They're like, we use True Media, and so now it's starting to trickle down. But I would say for the most part, everybody has TrackMan, has some form of a video software, and then they're using a True Media type program.
Yeah. And then just beyond the data information, I mean, I'll speak for myself. We at True Media got into college baseball the last 3 years or so, and I was surprised at how big the sport has become, especially in the SEC. How have you seen SEC baseball on the whole evolve and change over your decade or so in the league?
Well, it's funny. I was in it in 18, and then left for 4 years. And so in 18, it was like I felt like I had the secret sauce.
Uh huh.
There was maybe me and one or two other teams that were really looking at analytics, and I was able to quote unquote have a cheat code
Right.
on attacking, game planning, and hitters and so forth in development. And now that I've come back, that cheat code's gone. So in 4 years, it's made a monumental leap. And when you look at it, more people now are hiring people to put into in their baseball staff and saying this guy's just strictly dealing with analytics.
Hmm.
So it's come a long ways, and now it's about who can stay ahead, right?
Yeah.
um, uh, who can keep pushing the envelope with it.
Yeah. So since this is kind of the eternal question, I think, for a coach, but once the playing field is leveled out and you're all working with roughly the same information, like where do you go to find an edge? I mean, I guess this is kind of how do you do your job sort of thing, but what are a couple of keys, I guess, to look for that edge, or ways that you can gain an advantage when you're all working from the same info?
Well, I won't give you all the answers to that
Of
question because
course.
that's some secrets, but
Right.
I think it's this, right? I mean, I'll use professional baseball,
Okay.
and I won't name team names, but there are certain teams who um, continue to jump out and stay 2 or 3 years ahead of other teams because the systems they had put in place when this whole data revolution or whatever we want to call it, this data age emerged. And so they're continuing to build systems that and find different things that are keeping them ahead, whether it be the value of a player when you look at WAR, or whether it be, yes, we know for sure if this guy is throwing from this release height with this much break that he is going to be a guy. And instead of still kind of guessing and going, well, I don't know, it doesn't look right, they are 100% taking the objective data and pushing the envelope with it. And that's what I'm doing. I've got some things in place when you look at, uh, even though I think the playing field was level when I got back in, I feel like I'm still I still got the lead in the race coming from Major League Baseball, and I want to try to build that gap. And I'm doing that with just some systems, with some different things we're obviously really looking at through True Media to continue to try to keep that gap.
Hmm.
And the more you're looking out there, instead of just learning it right now, eh, you're able to continue to do that. And I think there's guys in college baseball, especially coaches, they're still a little bit, I won't say reserved, or I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. They're not ready to completely pull the trigger. They're still going, man, I need the guy who throws 95, and I need this, and this. And man, there may be a guy who throws 90 with a better fastball with better swing and miss. And so I think continuing to stay to use an example, to stay in that mindset is what you're able to do to continue to create an advantage.
At the MLB level compared to, say, the SEC, what's different about the resources you have, either from a data and/or support standpoint?
Yeah, it's a massive. It's I'm going to say, well, heck, it's got to be more than that. I'm going to say they look at, there's not a stone unturned there, right? I mean, when you look at positioning, how well does this guy go to his right or this guy go to his left? And then, the model may show that we need to be in a slight pull, but we know our shortstop goes to our right really well, so we're not going to shade him as much. um, all the way to we feel really good about what this guy's stuff is. So we're, whatever pitcher we're facing, we have a system in place to, um, prepare for him before his start. I think all the count leverage sheets are becoming really huge that guys are looking at and being able to use when hitters come into the just why. I mean, right? I mean, you watch the game now and it's like, how was that guy sitting on that one,
Yeah,
two, whatever, and hits it 500 feet?
right.
Well, it's the information that they're getting. And so, those, heck, I would probably guess that most teams now have an analytic department of a minimum of 15 people.
Hmm.
And 10 to 15 at minimum. And then obviously the more aggressive teams probably have upwards of 20, 25. And so for most schools, even in the FCC, if you can get one, you're doing good. If you get two, you're the Mets who have as much money as you want.
Yeah, yeah. How about from just an everyday prep standpoint? Obviously, MLB has three times as many games. You're playing every day for much longer. How does that affect how you prepare compared to college, where you have a midweek weekend series and everything's much more kind of compressed into a smaller time span?
Well, when you're in the big leagues, you wake up and the first thing you do is get on True Media. And before you go to bed, the last thing you do is you're shutting your computer down and you're on True Media. So it never quits at the big league level. Like I can't, like, I'm being dead serious. Like, first thing you do, yeah, you may wake up and check an email or something, but then it's like, okay, I got to jump on here and look at who we're playing today. How does he match up against the starter we're throwing today? And then when you get back to your hotel room or wherever you're at in your home city, you're looking at how that performed, and then you go to bed and you get them do it all over again the next day. Where in college, it's more, to your point, you have a little more time to dissect the information. It's just not so much go 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 go, and that's one of the things I really like about getting back into college is now I'm able to teach a little more with it, um, and look as opposed to just going, okay, who's the next one, and getting to the next game and getting to it where I'm able to bring that player in and spend more time with them than I was able to,
Right.
when I was with the Twins or at the big league level. And so, yeah, I think that's it. I think, just time.
How did your 3.5 seasons at the MLB level change kind of what you did? You're coming back to college with a different perspective. How did that? What are a couple main things that affected the way you do things?
I told somebody the other day, I felt like I went and studied abroad for 3.5 years and was able, thought I had a decent process before, but I think the biggest thing is finding holes, right? I mean, pick your favorite. Well, we had Louis Rice. I had Louis when I was with the Twins before they traded him. And my whole thing there is Louis is a really good hitter. So finding a hole to get a guy out who hits 400 is hard to do.
Yeah.
So being able to really break him down, even though the hole is not very big at all, there's a hole. They all have one, and then finding a way to take the pitcher with his stuff and match up to that is, if you really pull everything back, that's some things I was able to bring, back to college.
How much in general of pitching coach prep, how much do you focus on your guy, like your pitcher, versus how much do you focus on studying the opposing hitters and finding those holes? How do you keep those things in balance?
Yeah, I think it's individualized, right? So I had a young man this year, Paul Skeens, who's really really good. He's probably going to be one of the top picks in the draft this year, and he throws 100. And so when you have that guy, we have to make sure we never get away from his strengths,
Right.
right? He throws 100. He's probably got a 65 grade slider, 60 grade changeup, another 65 grade curveball, and this fastball is probably grading out at a 70. So you never get away from his strengths no matter what.
Hmm.
When you get to your other guys who, are more your average college right handers who maybe, 92, 93, and they've got a good slider, and they've got good. Then we're gonna really match it up like you do more into the big leagues, where you go, okay, hey, here's your strength. Now, these are the certain guys we're going to go, quote, strength on strength. Hey, this guy, we're going to pitch him a little backwards. Your best pitch is your best secondary pitch is your slider. So that's how we're going to attack him is we're going to use your slider, and then we'll get to your fastball, as opposed to just going, hey, let's try the curveball, let's try the changeup. I'm going to take the strengths of what he does well, look at that hitter's weakness, and then try to blend them that way.
You mentioned Paul Skeens, who came into LSU from Air Force via the transfer portal, which has obviously changed a whole lot of stuff, college baseball, college sports in general. You're looking at that portal. How do you factor stats, numbers? Obviously, Skeens is not a guy that requires a lot of advanced analytics to realize he's good, but how do you use numbers to try and figure out who might be a transfer portal target?
Well, here we can talk about Paul. One of the things that got me was, he had a good fastball. It was 96, 98 at the time. Quite frankly, I mean, the slider was not good metrically at all. And the changeup was just, I mean, the changeup was okay. It was just, as you know, and I don't want to get into changeups too much, but it was just a that
Uh-huh.
speed thing for him. So it was just okay from a movement standpoint. So you looked at it and you go, okay, the fastball can play. Do I think I can get him a slider? Do I think I can get him, a changeup? And then not only that, can I continue to develop his fastball? And so, no matter who it is in the portal, those are kind of the things I go through. Yes, you're looking at some numbers. You have to take into account. I think that's where um, I don't want to give away all my secrets on
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we're doing, but at the end of the day, I mean, you're taking into account what can I enhance that will play at the level that we're currently playing at, meaning our competition. And Paul really fit that. Um, and then talking with him, it was like, hey, he knew he needed to get his slider better. He knew that the changeup was a good pitch for him, or he was getting decent results on it, but it needed to move more. And so when those conversations start to happen, then you start to have potentially a match with somebody in the portal.
Does that go like beyond the portal? Just are kids coming in, or I guess ask how much do incoming kids, whether it's freshman portal, how much are they looking for data wise?
Believe it or not, right now there's a lot. There's more and more quote unquote labs being built
Hmm.
where players are coming in and they're going, "Hey, we have." Uh, I know that my fastball has 20 inches of induced vertical break on it, and then we start to talk about release height and see if that actually plays because it's like I've told them. I said, "Hey, there are guys who have 22 inches of induced vertical break, and debate based on their release height, it can not play like carry. So, and then there's guys with 17 inches of induced vertical break, and they have a certain release height, and it plays like true carry. So, trying to, good, they know their metrics, and then that speeds up our conversation to the development piece of everything we're doing.
As for you, from the pitching coach side or head coach, doesn't really matter. What is important if I'm an analyst and I need to communicate information to you or give you information, whether it's MLB, college level, whatever? What's important for someone like me to know about giving you that information from a communicated to you standpoint?
Yeah, I want to know if there's a pitch. I always start with just, hey, do they have a foundation? Do they have a pitch, whether it be a curveball, slider, changeup, or fastball, that plays and either is, uh, unique in its movement and the release height, meaning there's deception, or it's just, hey, he can power through this because there's a velocity or a late break on a slider. And so I always just start out, hey, I don't need five pitches. I need one to start.
Right. What's different about this guy?
Yeah, what makes him unique, and then from there we can start to piece together a plan for him and attack hitters with it from different. Because if we have one swing and miss, then we have a chance. We've just got to find a way to get to that two strike count, and there's ways, there's different paths.
And as you communicate information to players, obviously everyone learns a little bit differently. How do you tailor that? Whether it's graphics, data, tables, whatever. How do you tailor and work with different players different ways?
Yeah, I'm just real big on. I hold class. I mean, I bring him in. We were talking about Paul earlier, and he's easy to talk about, but one of the things I think that really, really helped him and he had success is we gave him access to True Media, and he sat there and he was locked in, and he's like, okay, yes, I can pull up and see how this guy's done on a fastball similar to mine, and what areas can I attack him with. And so as I was sitting down and game planning with him, he was also there as well, so to speak. He already knew some things coming in, going, okay, yeah, my fastball plays into this guy, plays away to this guy. And so when you look at how you develop a plan with the player, I think it's bringing them in. I think it's educating them and showing them. 90% of your players want to know, what makes them unique and what makes them special. And that's what I talked to them about. Hey, here's what makes you unique. Here's what makes you special. Here's your path to professional baseball and potentially the big leagues. If we can continue to do X, Y, and Z, and then get X, Y, and Z better.
Mm-hmm. Let me finish this segment off. A question from our guy, Brad McKinney, whom I know you worked with at the Twins. He wants to know, Brad's always looking for the next guy, any under the radar SEC pitchers that you think can make the jump in the next year, a first rounder that we're talking about a year from now?
Yeah, there are quite a few of them actually. Yeah, so I mean, I think Chase Burns is special. We know he has a now slider. There's some things he's got to clean up. Um, I really like the Luke Holman from Alabama, another young man. Or they're actually both in the portal right now. They both have, as I talked about earlier, when you look at and those aren't really outliers. Those are guys who are out there on the front, but um, I wouldn't say they're solidified top 10 picks. They need to continue to progress. But yeah, no, I mean, we could go down. The Caglione from Florida has a special fastball. Obviously, is a good player. Yeah, there's quite a few. We have a couple that at Georgia that I'm really excited about. I think Chandler Marsh has some things we're going to. I think there's a lot of guys,
Yeah,
but just off the top of it, those big three
sure.
right there are unique. All have a chance to pitch in the big leagues, and I don't think they're solidified top 10 picks. And I think they're going to be. It's going to be really cool to see how they develop over the next 10 months, and see if they make that jump into that elite group of top 10 players in the country.
So we wrap things up with our playing favorite segment. We'll ask you a handful of quick hitters about your favorite things. Let me start with your favorite number and why.
Well, it's kind of crazy on the number thing. So when I've always been about the players, and I used to tell guys, they'd say, "Hey, what's your number?" I'm like, I don't care. My day in the sun's long gone. You want a certain number, I'm going to make sure you get it. Well, my first year as a head coach in coaching high school baseball, I had worn number 2 for a while, and a player wanted. I said, fine, you can have it. And I said, hey, just give me 47. Nobody's going to want 47. And so what was funny is I'd worn it, and I don't wear a jersey much, and that had been my number. I had a stop where it was 40 at Dallas Baptist, and I was fine with that. But then when I got to the Twins, they gave me 47. I'm like, hold on, this was Jack Morris's number.
Oh yeah.
And so I've been, yeah, but there's been a lot of stops where I've been 47. One year I was 40. So um, that's my number there.
I
Yeah,
like
I,
it.
I just I want to make sure the player, it's his time, it's his
You stay out of the
thing.
way.
I If somebody wants 47, they can have it. So I'll move to something else.
All right. Who was your favorite player when you were a kid?
Oh man, there was a lot. You know, I really liked Cal Ripken. He was just the Iron Man back in the day. Big Ryan Sandberg fan. It was back. That's Cubs were on. They were on all the time. The WGN Day Baseball. Ryan Sandberg. Yeah, I would say those two guys.
Nice. No, I just finished reading a book about Ripken's streak, which is just insightful. Is all the things he had to go through and everything. Your favorite MLB city to visit? You're on the road, 3-game series. Favorite place you want to go?
Uh, when we only went once when I was there. I really enjoyed Miami the way it was set up for us. Enjoyed Miami. If you talk divisional, man, really, I'm just a big fan of Chicago. We played the White Sox obviously 19 times a year. Well, they changed it this year, but when I was there and just being in Chicago, love it.
Yep. Yeah. Our producer Sergio is from Miami, so he'll be happy to hear you say that. Favorite thing that's happened to you in the last month or so as a result of winning the national title, as much as you were able to revel in it before switching jobs?
Man, the favorite thing, I tell you what, my son's a high school. Our son's a high school basketball coach, and him and his wife they have their first. So I'm actually a granddad. Our
Nice.
grandson was there with us when we won the national title and got to run around on the field and throw up confetti. And it was funny you asked that question. I was actually looking through those pictures last night, and I'm like, man, how cool was that? When you think about national titles, you don't think about the people that are going to be there. But now that I've been able to reflect back, it's like having him there, man, that was awesome.
That's pretty cool. I like it. Finally, do you have a favorite "How did I get here" moment? Your career brings you somewhere cool, and you're able to like realize this is a pretty fun, impressive, proud moment that I got here.
Man, yeah, I've always been this guy who's just had my head down and went to work and,
Yeah.
and tried to get better every day and the cool one. I'm not gonna lie to you. Opening day in 2019, my first big league game, we had Cleveland and the place was sold out, and I just remember looking around in that dugout, going, "How did I get here?"
Yeah.
I think those "how do I get there" moments change a little bit each time, but
Hmm.
that one is still real big for me. I just looking around, going, "Holy cow! I'm in the I'm coaching in the big leagues."
Yeah, I bet. No, that's a good story to end with. So, Wes Johnson, Georgia head coach, congrats again on the national title with LSU. Thank you for joining us here on Expected Value.
All right, thanks, guys. Y'all have a great day.
Back in the True Media studios, I'm Paul Carr. Thank you again to Wes Johnson for joining us on the show. Best of luck to him with his new gig as the head coach at Georgia. I'm joined now by producer Sergio De La Espriella, a Florida alum, Sergio, so I apologize for making you produce a show with LSU pitching coach who knocked out Florida in the championship series. I appreciate you persevering and working through it.
You know, it's been a year of runner-ups for me so far.
That's right.
And if, Inter Miami's not going to finish as a runner-up, so I think I can kind of count them out.
Messy, you never know.
Well, no, I think I do know, Paul. I watched this team.
Just got to make the
Messi's,
playoffs.
yeah, he can take us out of the cellar and take us to the playoff.
Right.
That I believe. Winning the thing, runner-up, don't know. But if the other team that I love, the Miami Dolphins, are the runner-up, at least I can drag you down with me on that.
That's
one,
right.
as we're
Right.
both Dolphin fans.
We're going down with that ship together.
I
Yes.
will interject, though. I am a bit disappointed that you didn't do as much research for number 67.
Mhm.
And while I
Good on
love
us.
while I love your pick, and as a Dolphin fan, I completely agree, should be a Hall of Famer. In 2021,
Mhm.
when Mesut Ozil moved to Fenerbahce
Oh,
in Turkey, because as you know, he's has Turkish, or he's
right.
from
Turkish
Turkey,
roots. Yeah.
Turkish roots, whatever. That was his boyhood club. When he
Mhm.
arrived in 2021, he was
Oh,
assigned the jersey number 67.
nice.
And according
Forgot
to his
that.
Wikipedia page, it is, quote, in reference to the license plate of his ancestral town, Zonguldak. If you are Turkish and I pronounce that incorrectly, you can send all of your complaints over to @PaulCarr, because his number 10 was
Ah,
taken. And so he picked up 67 in an emotional move,
man,
which
I'll be honest. I didn't even think about looking up soccer players because who wears 67 in soccer?
who wears 67? Exactly. I remember being like, I'm pretty sure some famous soccer player did that for an emotional
Nice.
reason, and he came up. I was like,
Yeah.
that's right, I remember.
Yeah. Usually, if you have
So
67, you're the 17-year-old who just got called up from the youth squad because they need to fill a League's Cup game
yeah,
on
making your
Tuesday.
FA Cup
Right.
second round debut
Right.
for the
Yeah,
team.
you see that when
Exactly.
those numbers start adding up to like 500 for the whole lineup, yeah, these guys aren't part of the rotation normally right now. So, all right, so let's talk Wes Johnson. Always fun to get a national champion on the show, even if they knocked out your alma mater in the championship series. What did you think? What did you pull away from that conversation once you stopped hating him?
Well, it was very easy to stop hating him because it was a fantastic conversation, and I thought it was a very, um, we love unique paths here at, at True Media and Unexpected Value. But I was very surprised at how quickly, in terms of the amount of stops he made to get to a head coaching position or manager position, whatever you want to call it. He went high school to a position coach in the SEC, which is a pretty big step from to go from one to the other. Then big league ball coach, pitching coach, LSU, and now the head coach at Georgia. So I loved his path, and I think that his sometimes people will say, "Oh, I just love the college level more because I love being with the players." And there's a lot of people that's true. And for Wes, I do actually believe it in our conversations that we had on and off the air as well. Um, but it wasn't just the hours are better, the pay is good. He really does care, and it came across that he wants to develop these players and these young men to be the best versions of themselves because the whole the age old 97% of whatever college athletes go pro in something other than sports. And I think to have someone of the character of Wes, and this is just in our, the hour and 15 minutes that I was able to speak to him and listen into the conversation, to have someone of that character who truly cares, I think is very good for society as a whole, but especially, and I'm going to swallow a lot of pride when I say this, good for the University of Georgia.
Ooh. Yeah, that's even worse than LSU from a Florida
It
standpoint, right?
is. It is.
Yeah.
Yes. The only thing there isn't a worse option. That's like rival number one at UF.
Yeah,
So
that's a tough one. Yeah, I mean the career path is super interesting because I remember when he left the Twins for LSU, like that's a kind of an eye-opening step to go from major league pitching coach, where presumably you've got a manager job, at least possibility on the radar at some point, from that to a college pitching coach. Obviously, one of the better collegiate programs out there, but yeah, it speaks to something we talked about on the show. The progress, the growth, I guess, in collegiate baseball, especially in the SEC, is just, I mean, to me, it was just super surprising when we got into it a couple years ago and I started, looking at behind the scenes facility tours and you see how many, these teams are selling out every single game, between 5 and 10,000 seats at every single game. It's better than any minor league facility atmosphere that you're going to encounter. So it speaks to, baseball is turning into kind of a revenue sport. Obviously there's football, which is second to none. Uh, Men's basketball, women's basketball at some schools. And that's about it from like you're making money. But baseball, I think these SEC, especially schools, are seeing this as this can be a moneymaker for us, both directly and indirectly, in the sense that you send a few key guys to the majors, they start getting, 8, 9 figure contracts. Some of that money is trickling back, and it's just kind of a nice cycle. So it speaks a lot, I think. I don't know the money he was making with the Twins versus LSU versus Georgia, but the fact that he was able to make that move tells you enough that that's where there's just a whole lot of cash and a whole lot of growth that's happened in college baseball the last decade.
well, it reminds me a lot of the kind of SEC football coaching revolution where, there's this whole concept of do you get like an older established coach who's kind of grit their teeth and gone through 20 years, 25 years as a position coach or a coordinator, or do you go with the young mind, the Rams with Sean McVay, the Dolphins with Mike, do you go with that younger mind that can go ahead and do that? And Wes isn't an old man by any stretch of the imagination. He's fairly young. And so it looks like you said, in these now revenue sports, or what could be revenue sports in the SEC, these things are kind of skewing a bit more younger and more, more people in line with traditionally, I should say, stuff that we do with advanced analytics and are embracing the numbers and situational and doing the looking at True Media in the morning once you wake up and looking at True Media right before you go
Yeah,
to
we're
bed.
gonna have to put Wes on the payroll or something.
I mean, we might have to we might have to see if Georgia can allow that. But as someone who went to an SEC school, I went 2014 to 2018. I was able to see Pete Alonso at UF. I was at the old McKinnon Stadium before they tore it down a couple years ago and built this beautiful facility I've yet to go to because I haven't been to Gainesville in a few years. But I'm excited to, in a few years, be able to go up and see a game at that new ballpark. Like, you're right, the revenue sports are kind of growing bigger and bigger. That's a podcast for another day because it
Yeah,
has to do
it's
with
a different
TV
show.
contracts. It's a different show, but like you said, they are kind of putting more emphasis on what traditionally had been viewed as a non-revenue sport. Whereas I know at Florida, the revenue sports include football, men's basketball, baseball, and softball is actually a revenue sport at
Mm-hmm.
Florida as well.
Yep.
So that's a rarity to have that many revenue sports
Yeah,
at
you
one
got a
school.
few.
But it's nice to see them hiring those people who are a bit more open to the analytics. I want to say post revolution, since I feel like just given what we've seen in college baseball and the growth the past few years of our product. So it's nice to see that.
He talks the way he talks about the data and stuff is just kind of part of the process, and it's is obviously much easier in baseball than a lot of other sports. But he talked about one thing I liked is that he talked about tailoring data and information to different pitchers because whatever Mike Trout struggles against the high fastball. Well, sure, maybe it's making this up. Maybe if it's 97 and up, he does. But if you're throwing your fastball at 93, you can't attack the same way. So you gotta look at things a little bit differently.
It may be a fastball to you, but that's a changeup to Mike
Correct.
Trout.
Or if your curve moves, a certain direction, a certain velocity, certain spin rate, whatever, certain amount of break, that can be more effective. So having more data is it's a natural step because coaches have always kind of know, okay, what can he hit, what can he not hit, where is holes, etc. But it's just this natural. Okay, we have more information, so it's not just what kinds of pitches, but what are the characteristics of those pitches, whether it's again velocity, break, whatever. So baseball is obviously again very inclined to all of this, and it's easy uh, in part because it's just a natural next step, and the data is also there. So you get guys, Wes is whatever in his 50s, 50ish. He started his coaching career in the late 90s, so he's kind of a nice in between old school and new school, and has been able to straddle everything, which I'm sure is part of the reason for his success.
I wouldn't call him an old dog, but it does break the moniker of you actually can teach an old dog new
Right.
tricks. It's just a matter of if that dog
Right.
wants to learn.
Yeah, and it's not even new tricks is the way I kind of see it.
Right.
It's like, look, we talk about the communication factor, and the best way to get the numbers across is to speak that same language that they're already saying. So, you're already telling guys where the holes in his swings are or something like that and where to attack. We're just giving you a visual for it, or we're giving you the numbers like, look, here's why he can't hit in this quadrant, or here's where his slugging percentage is low. This is the same thing. So that's when it's most effective. You're taking information that is already basically being used, maybe just not explicitly, and turn it into something that you can just hand them or tell them, and they use the exact same way. It's just kind of a plug and play for something they're already doing.
There you go. I completely agree with that, and it's nice to see them embrace selfishly because us
Right.
here at True
Good
Media,
for us.
right?
Yeah.
It's good for us. It's nice to see them embrace that side and be able to use us. I guess you have to start setting True Media with a sleep timer or something because people are going to be
Yeah, we're
falling
gonna
asleep
have
with
to
it.
turn it off for certain hours of the day. So
We'll talk to the devs about the sleep timer option.
we'll see. Yep. So, all right. Thanks, Sergio. Thanks one last time to now Georgia's Wes Johnson for being our guest, formerly of LSU. Nice to have, selfishly, 3 straight national champions using True Media products on the college baseball side. We have several other college baseball shows in the archives, including Robin Lund, then the Iowa pitching coach. He's now with the Detroit Tigers. We have Chip Hale, the Arizona Wildcats head coach, also used to manage the D-backs. You can check those out. While you're digging around, please rate, review the show where you get podcasts. We had a couple 5-star ratings come in on Apple since our last show. We always appreciate that. And as long as Twitter is around, at least, you can follow us there at True Media Sports. You can email the show, expectedvalue@truemedianetworks.com. On behalf of Sergio De La Espriella and everyone else here at True Media, I'm Paul Carr. Thank you for listening to Expected Value, the podcast that goes inside the sports analytics world.